In the last video, we looked at the type of functions we got. We got linear ones, and this is an example of a quadratic one and a cubic one we would look at, and just kind of gave you an idea of what they would look like. You know, this would be a parabola, etc. In this video, I want to quickly go through the first method of drawing a parabola, and that's the table method. To be honest, we don't necessarily, I believe you know how to use the table method. And in an IG exam, they usually have the table for you there if they want you to use the table method. So the only thing I actually want to say about the table method is you need to make sure what you do when you substitute. So let's say this is a positive function, and there would be some negative values and some positive values that you would put in. Now, the biggest mistake that I see is made, and it's when students kind of doze off when I say, hey, are you sure you know how to use your calculator? Because if they're going to sub in this -2, they would do this. So we would probably, I don't know if we'll write it like this, but people, okay, that -2 they'd probably remember. But when they type it in their calculator, the first part they type like this. And the problem with this is, if you type this in your calculator, I have a calculator here, so let's do -2 squared. You can probably not see it. There you go, you could see it, I typed it there. And if I press equal, I get -4. And oh wow, that kind of smudged out, -2. So the big thing is this 2 is not, it's not only the 2 that's squared, the negative is also squared. So if I put this in the calculator, I should make sure I put those brackets there. So I would have to, let me just do it on the calculator so you can see the negative. There you can see I put the brackets in, and if I press equal now, it's going to give me a +4, and that's what I was looking for. And the same thing if there was a negative x squared. If there was a function, maybe there was a different function. Let me get a different color here. Y is -x squared plus 3x minus 2 or whatever. If you subbed in this, you would get lucky if you put, if I put -2 in there and I just typed it like I did -2 squared, I'd get lucky because that would be the same answer. But when I get to the positive numbers, I'm going to get unlucky again, and you're going to end up with like a shape like this instead of this. Okay, well, this one should be upside down, so it's going to be like this, but we'll look at that later. The point is, please make sure you know how to use your calculator when you come up with this, because if you want to put a negative number in here on your calculator, you'll have to type negative bracket -2 squared. Or if it was the positive number, you'll have to go negative bracket 2 squared. You will get away just typing this for in this case, but in there you would not get away. So it's better to just put in the brackets whenever you do substitution. But yes, that's that for that part. Let's take a look at, well, that's kind of the easy way. You don't need to know a lot about parabolas and how they work if you're using the table method. But in today's video, I want to go look at how we're going to draw it and what we can see. So there's a couple of steps. So the first step is when I see a function like this, I would try and rearrange them in the you know, the x squared is in the front and this x and then the constant at the back. So you can see it's decreasing the indexes. So this is to the power of 2, that's to the power of 1, and that's to the power of 0. So it's decreasing. Sometimes they might give it to you like this. Y is 2x minus 3 plus x squared. And then from there, I would just rearrange to have it in this form. Again, there's a lot of different ways in which we can draw this. Today I'm just focusing on this one, let's say the easiest method that I have. Okay, so step 1, I'm going to write them here. So step 1. Okay, first is I want to identify whether this is going to be a happy or a sad parabola. That's what I call it. And I have to look at the coefficient of the first, well, the first term, in this case, the term with the highest degree, and this is the x squared term. There's a +1 in front of here. So if this is positive, then I'm going to have a parabola that is smiling. It's very easy to remember. And if it were negative, then it would be an unhappy parabola, and it would be that shape. So that's the first thing. The second part is step 2. So let's make step 1 is the shape. Ooh, if I can write and spell shape, that would be nice. So step 1 is going to be knowing the shape. Step 2 is going to be finding the y-intercept. So the y-intercept. And that is actually the easiest thing because it's just this number. So if I had to draw this as a rough draft, there we go. Somewhere there would be a -3. And this is a happy parabola. So it's going to go, it might be going down through there like this, or I'm not really sure what this one looks like. We'll have to look a bit later. In the next step, it might go down like this. Sorry, these don't look great. But what I do know is it's going to cross the y-intercept here at -3. Not 3, -3. And the reason for that is, how do I get the y-intercept? Well, I know I just make x 0. So if I make x 0, that's going to disappear, and that term's going to be disappear, because 0 times 0 is 0 and 2 times 0 is 0. So I'm just going to be left with y is equal to -3, and this is where it comes from. So I know the shape, and I know it's going to go through here. What I don't know is kind of where it's crossing the x-axis, right? And that's the next step. So let's just take this off. And we'll write step 3. Step 3. Step 3 is going to be the x-intercepts. Intercepts. Okay. And how do I get the... Oh, that looks almost like a y. How do I get the x-intercept? Well, you learned a couple of ways of getting this. And now, finally, we're going to use that information. So the one is factorization. So that's just the first one, the factorization. I'll always try that first because it's kind of the easiest. Secondly, there would be, complete the square is an option. Complete the square. So these are things that there are videos about, so make sure you know them. And then the last one is the quadratic. Oh my goodness. Formula. Okay, so there are 3 methods which you can use to find or solve x. Basically, you're going to make y 0. So you'll go, okay, well, to find the x-intercept, I'm going to make y 0, and I'm going to solve this. And if you use factorization, that would be the easiest one in this case. You'll have those 2 brackets there. You'll have an x here, and then 2 numbers that multiply to 3. Well, that's a prime number, so that's going to be easy. And I need to get a +3 and a -1 to get to +2. So my answers here would be x is equal to 1, or x is equal to -3. So because if I made x1 here, 1 minus 1 is 0, and then this whole thing turns to 0, and if I multiplied with anything, I get 0, so that works. Or this bracket, if I have a -3 here, -3 plus 3 would make this bracket 0, and this bracket times anything would be 0. So, but by now you should know this. Okay, so that's factorization. The other one is completing the square. So there's a video about that. I would move that maybe over. We can quickly do that. So x squared plus 2x, I would half and square. So half of 2 is 1, and squared is just +1, and I would minus 1 directly, and I'll bring the -3 over, and I'll put that all equal to 0, and this would then be a square. It's just half that, so that's +1. No, yeah, +1. It's all squared. And then -4. And how we would do this, I'd go x. Do I have enough space? X plus 1 squared is equal to 4. I'll take the square root on both sides, and this becomes plus and minus. So basically I have x plus 1 is plus or minus 2. So x is going to be either, well, it's plus or minus 2 minus 1. So x can be either plus 2 minus 1, which is 1, which we saw there, yay, or x is negative 2 minus 1, which is negative 3, and that's what we got there. I'm not gonna do the quadratic formula now, but we would get to the same answers. We'll have plus or minus 2 probably as the, like under the square root, etc., and that would be solved. The point is, you can use any of these three methods that you like if you wanted to draw it. Sometimes in the exam they would say use this one or use that one, but you can use any three if it's not really specified. The whole point is trying to find the x-intercept. So I'm just going to take all of this off now. And just take all of that off. That's fine. And I'm going to draw my very rough little sketch here. X and Y. And what do I know? I know the shape and I know the y-intercept. So the y-intercept is going to be here somewhere at negative 3. And my x-intercepts are 1 and negative 3. So 1 would probably be here and negative 3 would be maybe there. And then I have my shape, which would go down like this and up like this. So that would be it. The only last little bit of information that I don't have is where's the lowest point in the graph, or where's the turning point. Now there's a little trick into finding that. I shouldn't have taken out the square form, but I'll make another video about that. So let's just look at how we're going to find the turning point. So step 3, well, sorry, step 3 is done. Step 4 is the turning point. And I can find it by using a little formula saying negative b over 2a. And you might be like, where on earth is this coming from? Now, if you remember the quadratic formula, this will be given in the exam. Now, if you're watching this, it's 2025. And for this period of the next 3 years, you should be getting the quadratic formula, so you don't have to memorize that. But it's negative b plus minus the square root of, not 4b squared, sorry, b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So this negative b 2a, if you forget about where you're getting it, well, it's just the first top bit of the quadratic formula, and it is that bit. I'm not going to go into the detail now of why this actually works, but if you ever want to remember it, you just turn to the formula page and be like, okay, I'm going to use the first part there and the bottom part, because this can actually be split up, right? So you can write this as negative b over 2a plus or minus, just FYI, this is called the discriminant, this little thing under the square root sign. You can split it up like this, and then that part is going to give me the turning point. So just like in the quadratic formula, in this case, a would be 1. So let's say, where will I write it? Do I have space there? A is 1, the b is 2, and the c is negative 3. So if I wanted to find the turning point, I'll just sub in. So it's negative because there's a negative, bracket because I'm smart. And then I put that 2. And you might say, oh, well, you didn't need to put the bracket there. I know, but it's good to do it well. And then negative 2 over 2 is just going to be negative 1. So it means that here where it's negative 1 is the line of symmetry. Now, you'll also notice that we got whole numbers here, 1 and negative 3. So I could have just went, okay, well, it's going to be 2 this way and 2 that way. So I'm going to be at negative 1 because negative 1 is halfway from negative 3 to 1. So I could have just read it off like that. But sometimes we don't get these nice numbers. Sometimes we use the quadratic formula and we get a number like 2.4 and 1.98 as our x coordinates. And then trying to find the middle, yeah, you can still divide and stuff. But this is just another trick of finding it. It would have been quicker to just measure this. But now this line is the middle. So this is the symmetry, line of symmetry for my parabola, because the one side will always be exactly the same as the other side. And I know this is -1. And if I wanted to find the actual turning point, just like in the let's say what would I call it? The table method. If I have an x value, in this case it's -1. If I wanted the y value, I would just put the x value in there. So in order to find the actual turning point, I can say y is equal to, that's a -1, so I'll put -1 squared plus 2 -1 minus 3, and that would be just 1, that would be -2, and that would be -3. So it would be -5 plus 1, which would be -4. So that point over there is going to be -1 and -4. So now you can see with these 4 steps how I can draw my parabola. If it was a negative parabola, we'll do a -1 in the next video.